This is Caffeinated Risk, the podcast for security professionals by security professionals. Here are your two self-proclaimed grumpy security guys, Tim McCreet and Doug Leese.
For our next podcast, we chat with Winn Schwartau, who's lived cybersecurity since 1983. It's hard to create a meaningful bio for Winn. He's had such an amazing career. From coining the term electronic Pearl Harbor to issuing warnings about identity theft and cyber espionage well before they were considered part of our daily threat landscape, to researching and writing books on cybersecurity. His career continues to be just that, amazing. Doug and Tim had a chance to talk with Winn about his new book, The Art and Science of Metawar, How to Coexist with AI-Driven Reality Distortion, Disinformation, and Addiction in the Metaverse. It's a great discussion and raised so many questions we still want to ask, but we'll wait for the book. Winn warns his readers that those who control the technology control the narrative. But it's not all lost. We have to adapt and strengthen our mental immune systems to defend against attacks on our cognitive systems. And now, let's check out our latest podcast with Winn Schwartau. Now we get to invite back to the show Winn Schwartau. Winn, welcome back. So it's nice to have you back, my friend.
Oh, Tim, congratulations on going independent and joining the broke of us. Thanks for having me back. Yeah. And I'll do my damnedest to stay PG.
Well, that's okay. Yeah, we're good. We'll take the explicit rating. We're good with that. So that's fine.
Our ratings might go up if there was an explicit warning.
I never thought of that. I don't know. Maybe.
You just tell me how to behave, Tim, and I'll...
good luck with that. Yeah. When's that ever happened? Right? That's never happened.
I'll do one of two things. I'll listen to you or I won't.
Yeah. It's a binary choice. We are happy to have you back because now we want to talk about this new venture that you're on, this new path that you're taking, and this new book that you're writing. So I'm curious for you to chat about it because I think our audience really needs to hear some of this stuff.
I'm just going to go straight to the punchline. This has been a very emotional 3 years writing this book because when I began it, I thought I was going to write about, quote unquote, the metaverse without defining it, and security and privacy issues with regards to experiences, the enterprise, and whatever. And it ended up being a total, what I use as a metanoic shift, a complete redefinition of what humanity is, what the world is, what is reality, what creates our sense of a consensual hallucination, and then trying to synchronize biological and silicon-based technologies together in coexistence. It completely redefined my definitions and perceptions of what is, what isn't. And there was a period there, it was just before I went over to, was it in France? Maybe before I went over. I entered a depression when it was like, oh, we are so screwed. As I was realizing things and looking at some of the political stuff that was going on, and it ends up right now that the United States has a national security crisis. I did not want to go in this direction. That was not my goal. But the national security crisis is that the United States, certain political elements, have systematically dismantled all of the cognitive studies regarding cognitive defense, disinformation, critical thinking since May of 2022. Right now, the United States is defenseless. The corporations, enterprises are functionally defenseless against these kinds of cognitive attacks, against the cognitive infrastructure, which is what I call metawar, and it has been done consciously and on purpose for political motivation.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at your face going, WTF.
Yeah, I can take my glasses off here.
Yeah. I think you're right that there's got to be something government-driven behind this, and usually governments are mostly interested in maintaining power. But it seems weird. It's like we've gone along with this whole idea all along willingly. And I pulled down your sneak peek preview because the book doesn't come out for another 2 weeks yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I did read it all, and I'm following some of the references you had. You know, you'd mentioned one book in there, Hooked,
Mm-hmm.
how to build viral apps. And it's like, that's how you get funding for this kind of startup. And
Silicon Valley will only fund addictive technology.
yeah.
Yeah.
Is that really true? And then I started digging into it. It's like, yeah, that's true. It's very strange.
And no, it's not strange. I did not know that's where I was going to end up. And it is exceedingly bothersome.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, he who controls the technology controls the narrative and maintains the power. And right now, at least in the U.S., we have abdicated control for our citizenry. When you look at some of the efforts going on in Sweden, Finland, Denmark, various places in Western Europe, right now, public financing of cognitive defense between the UK and the EU exceeds 5 billion euros a year.
Holy.
This year, those who hate critical thinking finally dismantled through threats Stanford Internet Observatory. And that was the last one to fall.
Wow.
Aren't you glad you brought me on now?
Holy. Yeah. I'm back to typewriters in the mountains again. But have we seen this before? Have we seen inklings of this in the past? Like after information warfare came out, there was an awful lot of discussion about that too, right? Are you seeing similar, like parallels to what you've created before?
I was talking to my wife and, obviously various people, and they're asking me similar questions.
Yeah, yeah.
In 93, I don't want this to come across the wrong way. 93, I was nobody, absolutely nobody, but I'm still here. So maybe I'm a little bit of a somebody, right? Number two, we didn't have the internet.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We had bookstore sales. This has started this mountain of response to the work that I'm doing. And I'm commuting to Europe now, like every month, because they get it. They thoroughly understand it. And it was a lot safer for me to go over there and work on a lot of this. And when I was trying to get neuroscientists and experimental psychologists and other folks to look at how I am lensing, using the cybersecurity prism to view this issue, that prism is new to them. Their expertise is new to me. But there was nowhere in the U.S. that was comfortable to do that.
But why do you think that is? Like, why is that, though? Why do you think that it's more... Is it because that they've been more forward-thinking on privacy and legislation or looking at it from a different lens? Like, what's your take on why it would be more accepted in Europe than here in North America?
Because they think in terms of us and we, not me.
Yeah, so the allocentric versus egocentric?
Some people call that evil socialism.
Evil.
There are various...
Or Canadian. Yeah, or Canadian.
I'm trying to be nice to my Canuckistani friends. There's much more we, and you hear it in a lot of our political speech. And again, I'm not trying to do politics at all, but it has ended up being so much more profoundly social an impact than I had ever predicted. I'm a geek. You know this, how many years.
Yeah. Yep.
And when you start looking at an issue through a familiar lens, you get some very different answers. Let me give you an example here.
Yeah.
I'm going to my notes because I need my own crib sheet because there's so much stuff. We'll go something really simple. In our world, cybersecurity world, we're familiar with DOS and DDoS.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
All right. In our cognitive systems, we have exactly the same thing. What I found was the exact numbers. What are the exact capacity numbers of the cognitive and sensory system that tie in ultimately to the brain? How can you screw with them? How do you create DOS and DDoS in the human mind and across entire populations? So I looked at the numbers, and in the book it goes into how does this occur? How does it occur at the nation-state level? How does it occur at the enterprise level? How can the enterprise defend itself against these types of attacks that are non-obvious? These are not the kind of things where you see the arrows coming over the parapets.
Yeah.
These are all very subtle things that have occurred, and you can go back to McLuhan, and he was a Canadian you should be proud of.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
One of the quotes I use is not his. I kind of bastardized his a little bit, in that the neuron is the message. The neuron is also the medium.
Nice play on it.
And our world has not looked at this stuff, cyber world. And so I am calling for an imperative, a national security imperative for any country that wants to protect its cognitive infrastructure to look at what is being done elsewhere already successfully.
So what are some of those examples? If others have seen this through your lens and they've identified it.
Oh, no, I'm not saying they saw it through my lens. They saw it anyway. All right,
Okay.
take a look at Finland. Finland is a great example, and I use it probably because they did a really good video on it. They begin critical thinking at the toddler level.
Serious?
Think about it. Critical thinking is really just asking a question. How'd you get to that answer?
Yeah. Okay.
It's not trying to teach the toddler, you're going to be a critical thinker. Critical thinking is topic and subject agnostic. Doesn't matter. What matters is how do you arrive at an opinion or a conclusion?
Okay.
My grandson, he's 5.5, and we wind each other up. To troll a 5-year-old and have him troll you right back, it's great.
Jesus.
He goes, when I was 3, the world was like this. What we're doing with him and have been doing is, okay, how'd you get at that answer? Just kind of explain to me. You see some of these political things, that on YouTube or wherever. How'd you arrive at that answer? Well, I just believe it.
Yeah.
Well, science doesn't give a shit what you believe.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so with Finland and a good friend, you remember Lars Nikander?
Yeah.
He is running the Psychological Defense Agency for Sweden.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Right? Wow.
Yeah. And so I'm tying him together with some folks from Finland. So they are building what I call cognitive infrastructural defense from toddler all the way up, and building it into their culture and using it as part of corporate and enterprise upskilling. Where the hell are we?
Yeah. Well, it definitely makes you wonder.
Mm-hmm.
My audio cut in and out and I had to rejoin. When I came back on, you guys were discussing the cognitive defense and making a young child explain how they came to a conclusion. In university, that used to be the norm. But over time, education has sort of derailed that. And, we use terms like student success and early wins and train for career and taking 3 or 4 years to learn how to think and research and demonstrate that there's something behind what you're saying is something that I wouldn't say is very marketable anymore, but it's essential to be safe in these times.
It's a life skill. It should be ingrained. If you're familiar with Daniel Kahneman, the brilliant philosopher,
yeah,
there's a lot of work that actually goes back to William James in the late 19th century. And please don't take these terms too literally out there because they are meant for communication. The conscious mind and the unconscious mind. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The math behind it, very quickly. The unconscious mind processes somewhere between 320 and 400 billion bits per second to keep us going. The conscious mind processes between 2 and 4 kilobits. Who's in charge?
Yeah.
How is that what Kahneman calls system 1, the automatic, innate gut reaction? You touch me, I'm going to bash your face in reactions. The visceral survival mechanisms that let humanity survive, lions and tigers and bears, oh my, which is what we were designed for. How does that translate into survival in an information-rich world? It doesn't. Humanity was never built to survive information and technology. We were built to survive animals, rain, nature, not tech.
Yeah.
Right.
The former Prime Minister of England, Cameron, he ended up on a Zoom call talking with who he thought was the president of Ukraine. And it was all bullshit. It was a complete scam.
Oops.
Yeah, how many oopses are tolerable so we can maintain control in society?
I guess that's a really good question, right? What's the level of risk you're willing to accept, right? If you can't validate.
Absolutely trust nothing and then verify.
But that's the problem, right? Is we've been talking about risk for 4 years on this podcast, and we're still here talking about risk 4 years later because people still, other than being able to spell it, don't understand the concept of it. So was that something you were thinking of when you were coming up with this, right?
People out there that do not understand risk, please do the following for me. Go to Toronto, go to Calgary, go to Vancouver. I don't care. Close your eyes and cross the street. When the president of Ukraine calls you on your Zoom, Jesus,
yeah,
never mind.
No.
Well, is it because the guy was the Prime Minister of England and it seemed reasonable that he would get a phone call? Because if the president of the Ukraine called me, I'd be highly suspicious.
Well, everything in a scam is contextual, isn't it? What makes it believable?
Absolutely.
This is what the Metawar thesis, I'm going back to some of the fundamental pages on it, is believability. How do you create a believable scenario? How immersive is it? Is it one-dimensional, audio only? Is it two-dimensional, visual and audio? What are the sensory components that make it increasingly immersive, therefore more believable?
Mm-hmm.
We live fundamentally in a two-dimensional world, a two-dimensional sensory world, audio, video. Is this Tim there? There's a couple ways, and a lot of us are starting to use, and don't take the word the wrong way, safe words.
Mm-hmm.
Tim, tell me something that only you and I know.
A $10 bill? Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So,
was it a Canadian or an American?
Well, it was always Canadian because that's all I had on me. So, yep.
Oh, shit. All right. That was close enough. But there are times that I did that. In fact, at DEF CON, there was this lady that I've known for 25 years. And we're talking, and I said, this is a new channel. I gotta play the game. I'm playing my security paranoid game. We gotta do this safely. And so we did it. And this is not technical. Everything we're talking about has a physical metaphor that is relatable to a 3-year-old, an 80-year-old, your enterprise workers. Why are there so many scams and people saying we got to wire transfer X dollars over to Beelzebub? Why? Because you fell for the bullshit. Why? Because, and this is a question for you guys. Mm-hmm. How many enterprises have built in cognitive defensive components to their security awareness training?
I've only seen one. I have seen one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're one up me. I haven't seen it yet.
Out of 16 million companies in the United States, you have found one.
I would say it was counter to some of the scare approaches that I'd seen in the past. Mm-hmm. And it really impressed me because it tried to explain how some of these scams worked. But the whole punchline was trust your gut. You already know when something's wrong.
There's much better science than that. In fact, I just wrote a book on it.
Oh, you did?
I've got to get the plug in there, right?
But you need something that's short and memorable, right? You need it to start somewhere. And it was a series of campaigns. And there was one, I remember, a picture of a lady sniffing a jug of milk. Like it was something, not drinkable, like trust your gut.
Right, and the jug of milk is how we didn't drink dirty water 50,000 years ago. Yep. He who drank the water didn't last very long.
Yep.
And there's 4 levels to campaigns that need to be evolved because traditionally security awareness training, that whole space without defining it, is providing what I call passive orchestrated content. means you sit and listen, you watch, you read a poster, you listen to some guy rant and rave, and that's it. And we know from Ebbinghaus's work, even going back to the 1860s, that the effectiveness of that is absolutely minimal, with somewhere around 10 to 20% retention rate over time.
Yeah.
So there are better ways. And again, I get into the fundamental issue is, how do you get our primal amygdalic lizard brain, which is our survival mechanism? How do we strengthen our mental immune system? The same, to the extent that when you cross the street and you hear a car honking, you look, unless it's really far away, because your brain can automatically judge distance.
Yep.
It's a close threat. It's a distant threat. Oh, that's an airplane flying over the city versus hitting the Twin Towers. These are all things that are primal to us. How do you get the system one, in Kahneman's terminology, which is echoing back to James and actually Freud and all of the psychologists from the early 20th century, how do you get people to think consciously? And it's a matter now for national survival and enterprise survival to build this in to any sort of security and or risk programs if you care about your country or your company.
And that's a concern. I guess that's one of the questions I want to ask you guys is,
I'm sorry I've been ranting. And
no, it's been good. No, man, it's good. This is why we love having you on, because it makes us think too. And this is one of the questions I kept coming up to is, look, it's a struggle enough, and you know this, Winn, and Doug's been here too. It's a struggle enough out of a 2,080 hour a year job to take an hour out of that 2,080 to take training, because that's typically the minimum bare bones compliance check the box requirement for security awareness training once a year. 1 hour out of 2,080. Awesome. How do you build the muscle memory to get to the point where that becomes a consistent change culturally in a company, and you as a user, a human, right? So
it all begins in chapter 33.
Okay.
Again, there's an awful lot of work that has been done on this, and this is where Professor James McGuire in 1961 began publishing how do you make this happen? How can you start changing, getting the mind to become self-healing? The brain does have the capacity to be self-healing. Our body is self-healing. Otherwise, you get a cut and you bleed out in 10 days, something stupid. Yeah. With our brains, it's a lot more difficult because we have competing systems of survival, and none of them are natively tuned for information or technology. So how do you engage them? So without going through all the details, because it goes on and on and on, the Cambridge studies, take a look, your audience, everybody, go look at two things. One is a game called Bad News.
Okay.
And what it does, it is a game that was targeted, and it was done between Cambridge University and a very small Dutch security awareness company, obviously. And it basically is using a technique called pre-bunking. And the pre-bunking technique works as such. Tim, I'm going to tell you a whole mess of bullshit about toothbrushing. Okay, you ready? I'm going to tell you some bullshit. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Brushing your teeth 3 times a day is good for you. True or false?
True.
All right, how long did it take you to respond to that?
Seconds.
Why did it take so long?
Oh, that's a good question. You told me you were going to tell me a bunch of bullshit, so I had to decide whether it was bullshit or not, right? And
so in the OODA loop of all of our lives of survival, silicon systems or biological systems, in between that observe and decide, you didn't orient in the way you'd think you're oriented. You oriented by pausing.
Right. To
engage conscious mind system 2 in Kahneman style language. You thought about it for a second. Nothing we haven't been told. When your parents are and you're young, you go, take 10, take a breath, count to 10. Now, what these guys have discovered is how to do it in real life. There's another one called MIST, Misinformation Susceptibility Test, MIST, and this is out of Cambridge as well. Okay. There's another one called Cranky Uncle, and there's literally 100 of these.
Seriously.
And Cranky Uncle was developed out of a combat from George Mason University and a couple of the Australian universities whose names escape me at the moment. And it was done regarding climate change, trying to get people to at least consider, pause, to think about the implications of, without the knee-jerk reactions. If I say to you, how much is 4 times 4? How much is it?
4 times 4? 16.
All right. Now, some people, if I say how much is 44 times 22, that's going to take some time.
A little bit of time, yeah.
Yeah, 88 and thing, and you're going to do however we all do that. All we want to do, all we need to do as a species to survive information overload, to survive algorithmic control, and to handle digital addiction problems is to think a little bit. Get our automatic survival gut reaction systems to pause before we act in the OODA loop. The techniques exist. They are documented. There have been experiments with millions of people, and the statistics show that after the first quote-unquote mental inoculation, I don't like the word, but that's the one the psychologists use, you as a participant in the study, on average, are 51% less likely to believe bullshit for a period of 2 months.
Okay. That's a relative number to be.
We have the science. We don't have the political will.
So why is that though? If the data is there and you've provided the data and you can demonstrate the value, right? Like there's a tangible value to that data. Why would they not give a shit? Why would they not listen to it? Why would they not try to action?
I can't say people aren't giving a shit.
Yeah.
I can't say that. I can say that I may be the first asshole who decided to look at this through a cybersecurity lens and map out how the silicon system and the biological systems are mirrors of each other, operating inside of different time-based environments. How do you synchronize them? Tech is always going to win just because of speed. And then the human frailty, I believe the tech. Oh, and we see that with AI. I'll just ask AI. Don't ask AI. That's just some other asshole's opinion.
Yeah.
Which is, maybe if I use AI to ask its opinion, it's like having somebody. What do you think of this?
But I think you framed it right when you said, I only ask it things that I'm not that attached to the outcome or there's a minimal consequence.
That's exactly right. AI is great if close is good enough.
Yeah.
Language translation, I use it all the time. And is my tense and my subjunctives and all of that off? Je m'en fous on French. I don't give a shit. Am I going to get the proper glass of wine out of it? Yeah, one way or another. Am I going to get to the bathroom across the street and on the metro safely? Yes, I am. If close is good enough. Number 2, don't believe it. You cannot objectively believe what AI is telling you. Number 3, we created AI in our own image. We don't like what we see. And number 4, back to Asimov, make sure that the results of your action based upon an AI output can do no harm.
Yeah, follow the 3 rules, right? The 3 laws of robotics.
Well, I got 4 in there. I haven't digested it all yet because I really I don't like getting sucked down the AI road. There's too many other people that are much smarter than I am when it comes to that.
But, even for AI, it hasn't fundamentally changed since the 40s, input, process, output. AI just happens to be exceptionally good at all 3 of those. It ingests a horrific amount of data. It can process at lightning speed, right?
Well, no, you have 2 fundamental problems.
Okay.
We don't know how it works. We don't know what goes on inside the black box.
Algorithmically, no. We don't know the math. Absolutely. Yeah.
And number 2, it's non-repeatable.
That's true. I've proven that theory myself. I've asked the same question twice by just changing one word, and I get entirely different answers from an AI engine. Same engine, same question, just different words.
I finally had to convince ChatGPT that I am not the captain of the Starship Enterprise.
Oh, that must have been disappointing. That would have been disappointing as hell, right? So,
Yeah, it looks like a good job.
yeah.
So I am curious because you'd mentioned in the book, or the sneak peek anyway, we've had other things that have changed our life, like the printing press and electricity and radio. But, this call to coexist with technology, why is it so much harder with computers? Is it because we just believing it better, or are we just not thinking straight about anything because we're kind of fried?
When I started this project, a lot of the discussion that you have heard over the last several years is about fake news, disinformation, misinformation, what have you. I read, I guess, close to 500 books and over 2,000 academic studies trying to understand WTF is going on here and looking for those little granules, those little tiny gold nuggets that make a connection that is non-obvious. And I do talk about disinformation, misinformation, but I really lower its importance in the bigger picture, because the way that I approach it, and I'm open to, let's have a good argument, guys, whoever wants to, that the fundamental problem is TMI, too much information. Mm-hmm. And this gets back to DOSing our brains. The brain has a very limited capacity to absorb information. Our entire sensory system of the 5 classic senses, without getting into all of the other things that we can talk about, 5 classic senses has a bandwidth, an upper limit of 11.1 megabits.
Okay.
That's it. What happens when you start overloading it?
You lose packet loss, right? That's
you have packet loss, and then at the receiving end of the nervous system, the sensory nervous system, is the brain, which has a cognitive limit of processing maximum of 674 gig per day. If you're awake, absorbing information 24/7, we all have reached and all experienced overload.
Yeah.
That's TMI. When you get into TMI, let's see. I'm going to go my notes here. What goes wrong when you have TMI? Let's see. Page what? Confusion, anxiety, sleep, attention and memory problems, poor decision making, leading cause of disinformation, bullshit, and loss of trust. I didn't have to make any of this up.
Yeah.
That's called science.
Yeah.
That's what those guys know. And when you see that also triggers stress and anxiety. Strong anxiety. Now, what happens there? FOMO, distraction, time wasting, fear of loss and power and connectivity, social acceptance, self-identity, mental health issues, technophobia. I didn't have to make any of this shit up. All I had to do was spend 4 years finding it.
That was awesome. Thank you, sir. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show, because you make us think a lot, right? And fingers crossed the audience thinks the same way. So I'm looking forward to when the book comes out, and I hope everyone listening gets a chance to pick up the book as well. Yeah,
if people are interested in the sneak peek, winnschwartau.com/Metawar, go on down. You can get the sneak peek. It's 33 pages or something. And you can do your pre-order, and delivery begins on my wife's birthday, August 24th.
That's great.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the latest podcast from Caffeinated Risk. Make sure you visit our website, caffeinatedrisk.com, to stay up to date on what we've been working on. Our website has bios of our podcast guests, posts about topics we're passionate about, and even a library of reference material we find valuable in the work we do every day. And don't forget to subscribe to Caffeinated Risk on your favorite podcast service. This way, you'll be notified when we release our next podcast, and you can listen to our previous guests just in case you missed them. Thanks so much for listening to Caffeinated Risk.